I haven't heard from her.
I spoke to her. We have one more minute. I spoke to her this afternoon.
It was really interesting. Like, you think this way. Federal level, you would do it at local level. It didn't translate that way.
All right.
It was just interesting.
I still have seconds before 6:15.
Only fair.
It's a little mini meeting. Little mini meeting of the minds.
Okay, it's 6:15. We'll begin, and I'm sure Amanda will be along in very short order. Let's bring the Brattleboro Selectboard meeting of Tuesday, June 17th, 2025 to order. This is a regular meeting. And John, has the meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Let's see, are there any adjustments to the agenda that are needed?
Nope.
Very good. So let's approve the minutes from May 6th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I move that we approve the meeting minutes from May 6th, 2025.
Great. All select board members in favor of approving the minutes of May 8th, please raise your hand and say aye.
May 6th.
All right, that's
Aye.
4-0.
It's May 6th.
Yeah. And chair remarks. Well, first of all, I'd like to say it's nice to be here, but it was also very nice to have had 2 weeks go by since our last meeting. And I appreciate everybody's attendance, and I appreciate everybody's interest in town business, but it's also nice to take a break. Now, a word about the veto of H91. As I said in my letter in the newspaper, I'd be pleased to discuss this issue of the unhoused and the impact of the state motel program on our town. And I have heard from the legislator that I am in preliminary discussions with a member of the legislature of our Windham County delegation, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. So thank you. John, do you have comments?
Yes, I have a few things tonight. First off, Assistant Chief Keir and Captain Emery of the Fire Department's Platoon 3 called to my attention the outstanding service of dispatcher Kelsey Holliday, who was the only dispatcher on duty for both fire EMS and police the night of June 6th and into the morning of June 7th. In Captain Emery's words, during those hours, emergency services were requested countless times throughout the town. Police were involved in several of the EMS responses, one of which was a very high acuity medical emergency. Police also had several law enforcement incidents that they responded to. Dispatcher Holliday maintained consistent communication during every incident and played a vital role in the mitigation of numerous emergencies. Her attention to detail and accurate relaying of information was noted by fire EMS and enabled us to provide great service to our community. So appreciation to Kelsey Holliday for the teams from the teams she supports and from Brattleboro as a whole, who would not be the great place it is without people like her. Final note, when Kelsey was told we were going to mention her tonight, she asked that we also acknowledge dispatchers Sarah Emmons and Megan McCrory, who she works together with as a team, and they collectively provide excellent service to our town. In addition to this acknowledgement, Chief Hardy asked that I give a shout out and a huge thank you to EMS Superintendent Billy Fritz and the EMS and fire crew for their quick response to the police department's call for help at a traumatic injury incident this afternoon. The third annual Juneteenth art exhibit and sale is back at the Brattleboro Municipal Center now through the end of the month. We're excited to feature 2 returning artists, Mwanga William, who participated in the first year, and Candace Taylor Diallo, who's returning from last year with new works in a new medium. So That art is on display on the ground floor of this building and is available to view during regular business hours. The town's annual Juneteenth art show features the work of local Black artists and provides a space for participants to display and sell their work, so check it out. The town of Brattleboro has been selected to receive a 2025 Governor's Excellence in Worksite Wellness Award. This award, which is administered by the Vermont Department of Health and the Governor's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports, acknowledges employers across the state that promote worksite wellness initiatives within their workplaces. And this is the third time the town of Brattleboro has received this award. The Vermont Agency of Transportation has scheduled multiple paving projects to take place this summer and into 2026 throughout Brattleboro and on US Route 5 from Brattleboro to Putney. The majority of the work has been scheduled to occur during typical nighttime hours in an effort to minimize the impacts to traffic. Over the course of construction, VTrans plans to send weekly email updates on construction activities and traffic impacts. So if you'd like to be included on the distribution list for project communications, visit brattleboro.gov and visit the news section for a link to sign up for email alerts. The town assessor has let me know that we have lodged the grand list with the town clerk today, and a copy will be posted on the assessor's page of the town website this week. It went up right around 2%. School is out for summer this week. The pool is opening for the season, therefore, on Saturday, June 21st. Swim lesson registration will be held at the pool on Saturday, June 21st, as well as on the 26th and 27th from 10 to noon. So if you're interested in swim lessons, check it out then. Space is also still available in our summer camps and programs, and you can register in person or online at brattleboro.gov. That's all I have.
Thank you, John. And again, congratulations to Kelsey Holliday and her team of dispatchers. Are there select board comments and committee reports? Oscar?
Thanks. I wanted to mention that I rode the micro move for an hour on its last day with Wendy Harrison, Peter Elwell, Steve from the planning department office, who it sounded like they found on the street and waylaid and got to ride the bus with them. That was the last night for this service that is going away, the Mover Microtransit. It will be missed. There are people who used it to cover the gaps of getting home from work, even during regular business hours, but certainly for night shifts that the Mover doesn't cover right now. So hopefully we can be in contact with the Mover, with local legislators, and see if there are opportunities to bring that service back in some form in the future, because it will leave a bit of a gap for the people who used it. I also wanted to mention for the people who have contacted me, and just to have this info out there, the reason the May financial report is not on this meeting's agenda is that the planned cadence going forward is going to be that the financial report for May will be the first meeting in July, and that pattern we expect to continue. That's right, John? Right? Yeah. So the June report will be the first August meeting, and so on. But it is still happening. So, yep, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Isaac?
Yeah. First of all, congratulations to the Brattleboro area middle school students who are graduating right now, and to all the students who are graduating this time of year. We're proud of you. Great to hear about the art exhibit downstairs for Juneteenth. Got to see some of the work coming in. Just a word about Juneteenth, that it was 160 years ago, this Thursday, June 19th, that we honor from 1865, when over 250,000 enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, finally learned of the official end of slavery, more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. And this is an important day of celebration and remembrance, and also a call to action. It highlights the resilience and resistance of Black communities. And it's an opportunity to confront systemic racism in Vermont as around the country. Some of the data that we've seen in Vermont is disparities in traffic stops. There's the racial wealth gap and disparities in homeownership and homelessness. And want to just uplift the incredible work of Black artists and leaders, community organizers, the Black-led organizations and businesses from Brattleboro and beyond. And the struggle for Black liberation in Vermont continues, and really appreciate all the contributions of African-American members of our community. I also want to just acknowledge that on Saturday, there was a demonstration on the Common that we had talked about here at the Select Board table. The Reformer reported that there were 3,000 people who participated. This was reported on Democracy Now! Yesterday that there were 5 million Americans who participated across the country, and that represented the largest demonstration in a single day since the current federal administration came into power. And just want to applaud the activism and advocacy and civic engagement of people of Brattleboro. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I just want to mention that please come see the artwork, the Juneteenth artwork, but don't come on Juneteenth because the municipal building's closed. It's a holiday. Okay, so public participation. If someone has something they'd like to say that is not associated with the agenda, please raise your hand. I see Heidi first.
Heidi Fisher, District 7. Just as a reminder, I'm sure you all remember that at the representative town meeting where we voted on the budget, representative town meeting voted to, obviously non-binding vote, but voted to ask the select board for a full and complete accounting of the actual EMS expenses and revenue from July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, to provide town taxpayers a clearer understanding of the financial impact of this new program. And I was wondering when we might get that information, and hoping that it would be in time for the budget process so that it helps inform the budget process going forward.
I can only tell you it'll be after June 30th.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Next, Kate.
I'm Kate O'Connor, Brattleboro, and I'm going to break the rules, so I hope I don't get gonged. I want everyone to know, on behalf of the committee that's organizing the 4th of July parade, that if you want to be in it, we'd love to hear from you by June 22nd. And you can email Brattleboro Goes Forth, and Forth is spelled FOURTH @gmail.com. And the parade is July 4th at 10 a.m. And I'm sorry I just broke the rules, but it'd be my only chance to announce it.
I'm not aware of any rule breaking, and the town is very grateful to the O'Connor family for organizing the 4th of July parade every year for, how many years, Kate? 15 years. Thank you very much. Announce away. Okay, Jean.
Hi, Jean Marie Davis, Branches Director. I have missed a few meetings, and I've heard some stuff go on, and I just had a concern. I was away at the White House and in other places with political affairs, and so my question is this, I've been called upon by many citizens in Brattleboro about a ledge hanging at the groundworks, and so I just wanted to kind of ask the select board, as this situation is supposedly a ledge hanging, because from my understanding and knowledge is that there was nothing that was called upon. There was no police officers called. There was no recollection, or I shouldn't say recollection, there was no reporting between the fire department, police department, or the EMS, and it was done apparently at groundworks on this. And so because I'm getting so many phone calls, and like I said, I'm not a citizen of Brattleboro. I live in New Hampshire, but I work in Brattleboro, and because so many people have called me about this, it's an alarming concern. And so I'm just curious, why isn't there anything being done, such as a temporary shutdown on groundworks to look into the investigation of this? Why am I getting phone calls? And I'm understanding this happened a while ago, about a month or so ago, and I'm still getting calls even up till yesterday. So I just kind of want to just bring that to the select board's attention, because as I was explaining to somebody, actually to one of the police officers, that it's an alleged hanging, because it could be an actual alleged attempt of murder, but nobody knows. And that's kind of scary, and I have staff that are alarming of this, and that's scary for the citizens of Brattleboro. So I just wanted to put that on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Because it's not a warned item for discussion, I'll just say that we will look into it and perhaps get back to you. Back to the community. Timothy?
Timothy Belknap, District 9. I read an opinion piece, Madam Chair, pardon me. I read an opinion piece today in the Commons regarding humanizing the unhoused, and I thought to myself, that's great, until I saw humanizing criminals without acknowledging in the same breath at all the victims of those criminals, including our aged neighbor who's been mugged 2 times doing her grocery shopping at the co-op. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
Susan Belleville, District 8. I hope this falls under the category of not on the articles, because it's information that's at the back of the handout to the Select Board. It has to do with incident reports by the police department. I did a comparison of 2024 calls and 2025 calls. In 2024, there were 1,050 incidences in May of 2024. In May of 2025, in the report, there were 1,343 calls. That averages 43 calls a day that the police department is responding to, compared to 34 calls a day that the police department was responding to in May of last year. We're not out of the woods yet. We still need to continue the vigilance and the efforts by the police department to combat the crimes that are going on. Property crimes, which is one that bothers me a lot, have remained pretty consistent around 60, and that is not a victimless crime. It does affect everybody. You can see the information that they've broken out. The other one that is of growing concern to me, and I read the reports from all of the departments, is the one from the assessor's office. And this year they put out information around the business licenses that were due, I believe it was April 1. We lost 8 businesses in Brattleboro from last year. Only 3 new businesses were registered. And that, to me, I'd want to dig deeper into that, and I talked to the assessor's office about getting more information around that information. But we need to start tracking what's going on with businesses, what kind of businesses we're losing, and how many we're losing, and why are they leaving. And this is an important piece of information to build our community back, and particularly to help our tax base. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Dick?
Dick DeGray, District 8. Wanted to follow up with John on the easement question for the sidewalk down 142 and who you've contacted and what the response was. Also, this is the last quarter of the year, the last month. There's no EMS update on the agenda, just wondering why that didn't happen. That concerns me. And I am concerned if you could talk a little bit more about kicking the monthly finance report for May to June, if you could expound upon that a little bit for me. I don't know, we've been always able to get the second week, the second meeting of every month for the previous month done. We've hired supposedly a very efficient accountant, so I'm just wondering why we're kicking that out an extra 2 weeks. So if you could answer those questions, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
John, are any of those questions readily answerable?
Yeah, so, let's see, the town attorney's been working with Genesee and Wyoming Railroad to try to get an easement, which is the last piece that we need to do a sidewalk construction project in the area that Dick was referring to. I think there's been some turnover in real property staffing over there, so they're in kind of a transition, and I think that's been part of the holdup, and we're hoping that we'll break through and get that necessary easement before we can break ground. I don't have a timeline or a schedule on that. I believe we were doing quarterly updates on the fire department. And I think the next one is in July sometime, but I'm not sure about that. I have to check the schedule. That they're nodding their heads, yes. And then on the monthly finance reports, so we were always cramming to get those done for the month by the time the memos were put together for your second meeting of the month. And with the finance team being kind of short-staffed, they asked, could we have some cushion and be able to do those the first meeting of the following month? And so we didn't have it ready this time for this month, so I said, like, let's try that, and we'll see if that works for folks. If it doesn't, we can try to do something different, but right now they were asking for that concession. So
I'd rather not be rushed. All right, is there anyone else? Anyone online? Okay, let's get to the consent agenda. John, we want to give us a thumbnail sketch of the
Sure.
consent agenda?
Yep, there are 8 items on the consent agenda tonight. If you approve this agenda, you'll be awarding the 2025 crack sealing bid to Indus Inc. for a total of $59,768. You'll be approving an updated outside consumption permit, bless you, for the Retreat Farm at 45 Farmhouse Square. You'll be approving a first and third class liquor license for Rail and River Tavern at 36 Bridge Street. You'll be appointing Bob Ferrante to serve as interim library trustee until the 2026 representative town meeting. You'll be approving a contract with Scott Mikusik for project manager services on the capital improvement grant project at the library in the amount not to exceed $50,000 and funded by the library endowment. You'll be approving a first-class liquor license and outside consumption permit for Retreat Farm Market Patio at 400 Linden Street. You'll be approving renewal applications for SKJ2 Sales Corporation's second-class liquor license, tobacco license, and tobacco substitute permit, endorsement permit at 328 Marlborough Road. And you'll be approving a parade permit for Brattleboro Goes Forth to be held on July 4th from 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Great, thank you, John. All right, is there anyone want to pull an item from the consent agenda? No, all right. All select board members in favor of approving the consent agenda? Let's have a motion.
I'll motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Great. Peter has moved to accept the consent agenda as presented. All select board members in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
There we go, 5-0. Now, on to regular business. John, do you want to kick off the FY26 utility budget discussion?
Sure. I'd invite Dan Tyler and Pete Lynch to come up to the side table. And so we met at your last meeting and talked about the draft utility budget, and Dan took that feedback that you provided him at that meeting and turned around and came back here with hopefully a final budget that we could get in place before the start of the fiscal year. So I'd turn it over to Dan for a synopsis of this and then answer any questions that you have.
Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. So the rate presentation that we saw a couple months ago and the draft budget last meeting, both were based on a 9% increase to the water side of the utility and a 2% increase on the sewer side. Following the last meeting, went back and worked with NewGen, the consultant, and updated all the numbers in the model and tried to look at alternative rate structures that would be possible to kind of get us where we need to be. In the backup, there's three options or three different rate structures. The first is what we have been talking about for the last couple meetings, 9% increases on the water side, and then 3% for the following 3 years. The second option has 2 7s and 3 3s. And then the last one was 2 6s, a 5, and 2 3s to get us to FY30. So the 9% increase was really based, when they did the model, they broke everything down, water, sewer, the rates are broke down. We pay more for sewer because the expenses are higher on that side and the assets are more expensive. The sewer side of the utility is also in a stronger position than the water side. The rates were adjusted back when we did the water or the wastewater plant upgrade, and with more recent increases, that side kind of already had, it's kind of where it needs to be. They had recommended a 2% increase on that side through the 5 years of the ordinance. And that 2% actually puts the revenues in a position to be kind of above the recommended rainy day fund, the 90 days of operating costs and the 2% of assets. It kind of floats us above that, and eventually as expenses increase and at 2% they'll meet, and then we may have to do something. So an alternate way of looking at this is, rather than splitting the two completely apart, if you look at the combined expenses, so if you, in the backup material, there's a chart that shows revenue versus expenses for the water side of the utility, and there's one that shows the two combined. We could leverage some of those funds that are already exist on the sewer side and keep that rate down. So the water, it would be a slower projection to get where we want, but the money would be there. If for some reason we needed it, the utility as a whole would be in a position that was solid. It's not really a long-term equitable solution because we have customers that are either only water or only sewer. The appropriate way is to get it back to that 65-35 approximate split that it is. But we could do that over a little longer time and leverage what's there. So the recommendation from NewGen was to do 7% increases for the first 2 years on the water side, followed by 3% increases, and then stay with the 2% on the sewer side. We also threw the 6s and the 5s in there. It gets you to the same place. I don't know that there's really any advantage to it. It kind of gives you 3 increases in a row rather than 2. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from the board? Oscar?
Okay. Thank you, both of you. I have some questions that I'm hoping I have worked out the answers to, but so I want to, so when you talk about combine, how literally are we talking about combining these two funds when we look at it with the, are we talking about transfers between funds to offset expenses, or literally combining them and they both draw from the same?
It's just looking at the accounting differently. They're not separate funds, they're not separate accounts.
So
It's-
already in real life, it's just one bank account?
Correct. It's just looking specifically at the water and sewer assets separately is how we had been doing it from the beginning.
So I guess my first question is, couldn't we get to the same place in terms of the overall rates if instead of sort of giving a break to the water side because the sewer is in a stronger position, we just increased the sewer rates by less than 2%? So we kept the water rate. I have sort of an inclination to keep things as split as possible, put the water rates where they need to be to hit the water side's targets, and then if 2% is too much for sewer, could we just bring those down instead and still keep the clean separation?
Right.
And still end up saving
Yeah, I
money.
suppose. I mean, I didn't look at it that way, but I suppose it would get you to the same place. You're going to come to that point where you need to start increasing the sewer
Right.
quicker, but presumably we'd have the water up where it needed to be at that point.
Okay, so let me just put a pin in that for a second and ask my big question, which I think I've figured out. But basically, in these scenarios up front, these 3 pages with the graphs, they all show a deficit of about 600K. So that's because the budget includes both the full depreciation and the capital?
Correct.
And some of the capital is designed to offset depreciation, so that's sort of being double counted,
Right.
and that's why,
Yep.
Okay.
And we're in a lower capital year because we're reallocating some of those funds, so the offset's not quite there. right?
okay. Okay, well, that's good enough for me on that. If people have more questions about that, which they might, I'll leave it up to them. So I guess, right, my thoughts are I'd rather keep the 2 funds as separate as possible, and if we can do 1.5 on sewer so that it hits its targets instead of taking that out of the water just because it's a bigger increase, making that more palatable, that would be my inclination. But those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Dan, did you say something about keeping the sewer at 2%?
That's how it's proposed in here, is maintaining a 2% increase for the 5-year, each of the 5 years on the sewer side.
And so these options are just for water?
Water. It would-
Okay,
it
so
would-
they are separate.
Correct.
And so
Well,
Oscar's goal has been met of maintaining them to be separate?
well, my understanding, and I'm completely open to being wrong on this because I don't understand it well. The way alternate 1 gets to be 7% instead of 9 is because we're basically going to run at a slight deficit and let the cash position of the sewer side see us
Right.
through, right?
Right.
So
So what would you
maintain the current
propose?
rates for the sewer,
Right.
but do the 2 9s on the,
I guess, well, so there's 2 questions. First of all, do we want to do that? Do we want to use the cash position to bring the rates down a little bit? Because it's kind of what we criticized, or some memo criticized a previous board of keeping the rates at 1% and then sort of having to pay the price later. So I think we should think about if we want to do that in general, or if we just want to put the rates where we think they break even. And then the other question is that, I guess, it's sort of semantic, but instead of bringing the water rates down by 2% and paying for that out of the sewer cash position, we bring the sewer rates down and pay for that lower rate out of the sewer cash position. And then you don't have to have this sort of cross-pollination.
Well, what I'm hearing in this discussion is, I'm looking at it from the ratepayer perspective. And if you can share the wealth of the sewer fund with the water fund, and it's merely an accounting device, then the ratepayers are served because the sewer money's just sitting there. Am I correct in that, Dan?
right, there are some ratepayers that only contributed to one side and not the other.
Yes, but the money's there.
Right.
And so if they are in fact, in practice, shared, yet there's an accounting differential, it doesn't really matter if the ratepayers, I think, are better served by having a lower rate for the water of 7% and using the whatever it is on the sewer side to float until the water rates are risen to the level that they need to be raised. Like, no one's being harmed.
Nobody's, I don't think anyone's going to be harmed. I guess I'm just wondering if it would be cleaner, very similar, but cleaner to do it the other way, just because then we avoid that exact situation where some people have paid into sewer more than they needed to, and now that money is being used to reimburse, to keep rates down on the water side that they don't contribute to. So it just seems like a shorter
Yeah, but no one's being
path.
harmed that way, because to me, most of the people, pay both.
Yes.
And the money's just sitting there. It's not like we're taking extra money out of sewer users' pockets to give it to water users. It's just there. And having a 7% increase rather than a 9% increase is good for everybody.
Sort of. I'm not going to,
Can I ask a clarifying?
Yeah.
We've been throwing around the word deficit a lot in recent weeks. So, and I know we're going to be running at a deficit. Do we know how much that deficit is in that first year?
Are we running at a deficit, or is
Was
that,
that,
again, an
or did I
accounting
not
mechanism?
understand that?
It's an accounting mechanism because we're including the depreciation
Sure.
in there. So,
But so what would the actual, John's got his hand up.
With the depreciation, it excludes capital though, so I did, $169,869. That is excluding the capital, so I don't know what it is if you put that back in, Dan.
well,
that includes the depreciation but excludes the capital.
Right.
So it's 700,
right.
700 and...
I
And
think,
is that an actual deficit? Is there a real deficit?
Well,
Use
I
an
guess it
accounting
depends how you want to look at the depreciation. I was hoping we weren't going to have this conversation. The depreciation's $2.5 million. So theoretically, our assets are depreciating $2.5 million.
Because they're brand new.
Well, utility-wide, they're not
Yeah,
brand
but-
new, but,
Yeah.
But the brand new stuff is, as we know,
Yeah.
Right.
as somebody who has to depreciate my own equipment every year, the first year is always a little bit of a
right.
harder swallow.
So we're raising the rates because of this accounting deficit, correct? Is that the reason why we're raising the rates?
We're raising the rates to cover our costs and set us up to be in a position to fill
To
our...
save for future capital expenditures
Correct. And potential emergencies.
and potential emergencies, okay. So if we could raise the rate 7% instead of 9%, I'd like someone to convince me why that isn't a good idea.
I think Oscar might be suggesting we raise the water 9, but flatline the sewer, or reduce it from a 2% increase to a 1%, 1.5, some. I don't know what that number would be to equal it out.
right.
I guess the other problem with going back and trying to figure that out is then we can't come back with an ordinance.
John?
So that's the next step, is to bring first reading on the ordinance to you, probably at your next meeting. I suppose one way to do it, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be to target a revenue in one of these alternatives, and then you could bring back options in that first reading of splitting it either between water and sewer, or, how, in various
Right.
different ways.
Right.
So you could still approve a budget tonight at a certain revenue level, and we could set the rates at your next meeting.
Okay.
I have a quick
Amanda,
question. Yeah,
yes.
so what is the percentage of people who use one but not the other?
It's small,
An estimate? 1%? Less than 1%?
less than 1%.
Less than 1%. What's a scenario when that would be the case?
There's places in town where the elevation is too high for the water system to supply adequate water pressure, but they're connected to the sewer system.
That's precisely where I live.
Like
Right.
Sunset Lake?
Like, Old Guilford Road,
Well,
the top of Old
I
Guilford
have a
Road.
well, and I use town sewer.
Okay. And then also, what are the sustainability forecasts? Like, why would separating them be potentially better for sustainability, using less water?
Separating the costs.
Yeah.
They're really
Is there any
separated because
impact?
that's what it costs us. The sewer side is more expensive than the water side. I mean, I guess, yeah, potentially there could be savings through sustainability, but it's always going to cost more to treat wastewater, and there's always going to be more wastewater infrastructure.
Yep.
Or more expensive wastewater infrastructure.
Oscar? So, we're talking about the equity between the sewer users and the water users, but it's a very small amount, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, that's more something I wanted to raise. That's not something I feel desperately, passionately about. And I am sorry to have plunged us into this finance zone. I think, so if I'm understanding this right, we will actually finish the year, this budget, we will end up with 1.8 million more dollars in the bank. It comes out negative because what we have is depreciating by more than that. So to maintain what we have costs more than we're setting aside, which is a problem, but kind of a different problem. So I think the only other question, and now we've sort of used the same word a couple times, but is if as a board, so we're basically saying, and you know, we've talked about this kind of thing before, in the original proposal, we would be expecting, those rates would pay for themselves, that's the projection. If we do 7 and 3, it's not because of a savings, it's not because of an efficiency or something, it's because we're just choosing to make them lower because we have a bunch of cash on hand, more than the sewer really needs. And so we'd be spending some of that cash to keep rates lower to sort of ease the rate increases. So before we do that, I just want to make sure that I'm a little ambivalent about that and want to make sure that we're making that as an intentional decision as a board.
I will ask the members of the board
Okay.
their feelings on that. Let's have a motion. Does someone want to make a motion to use this 7% number, and then we can have that discussion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I move for the utility fund budget to start with and discuss alternate number 1 for fiscal year '26 at 7%, fiscal year '27 at 7%, fiscal year '28 at 3%, '29 at 3%, and fiscal year '30 at 3%.
Great. John, did you want to qualify that?
Yes, Amanda, if you could put it in the form of the recommended motion, I think that would be just helpful for Jessica. And, minutes.
Staff requests?
Oh, okay, but, okay.
Yeah, what are the numbers we need?
So the numbers would be
Oh, gosh.
projected revenues of $7,085,007 and projected expenses of $7,782,876, and that is as presented below in alternate number 1, if that's the motion that you want to make.
You know, that is the motion that I intend. Can I follow your reading of that? Thank you.
Great. Okay, good. Okay, so that's the motion on the table, and I'd like to hear everyone's thoughts.
Well, at first, I was really appreciating, Oscar, that you brought up the idea of spreading out these increases over the 5 years rather than having such a steep increase the first couple of years. But after speaking with the town manager and reviewing these materials and understanding that this original proposal, while it is a big increase the first couple of years, it really it can help. It protects us against who knows what's going to happen, and it protects us that way. And it also is, with what we've seen with kind of taking some risks in terms of, for instance, not contributing the annual amounts to our ambulance fund or other funds, and we're seeing some unforeseen situations. I think it would be prudent for us to go with the original proposal and put that money in as been recommended with the 9% over the first couple fiscal years, and then go down to 3%.
Peter, do you have an opinion?
My understanding is that we can do this 77333. So that's from my understanding, that's where I'll probably land.
Thank you. Amanda?
Well, so I don't use town water and sewer personally, and
Yes,
so.
but as a select board
But as
member.
in the interest of the taxpayers, sorry, that was sort of funny.
And ratepayers.
The ratepayers. I think starting with the 7% increase sounds reasonable.
Oscar, do you have a?
Can you just remind me how far, I know water is under its target for cash reserves, sewer is over. Do you have any idea combined how much they're over? Like, are we talking $1 million? Or like a small amount? That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, we're
I have a
talking,
number on the tip of my tongue, but I don't want to guess.
okay. I mean, we're talking.
I mean, you
about-
can look at the combined chart and kind of get an idea of where, the scale of it's not great, but.
No, that's okay. I mean, I'm not going to kick up a fuss about this. It looks like a difference in about $50,000. I think the sewer, there were millions of dollars, I believe. I wish I had this, but I don't think it's a make or break decision. So if we want to soften the blow a bit, I'm not going to.
Great.
Be sad.
And I think that this accounting mechanism which is being used is certainly fine and appropriate, but I would like to give the ratepayers a break and have it an increase of 7% and then followed by the 3. So let's have a vote, shall we?
Can we hear from the public?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Public? Dick?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the appropriate time. There are two reasons I was here. One of them
I'm
was.
sorry, Tony.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Tony
I
Duncan,
know who
District
you are,
9.
but the world
Yeah,
doesn't.
Tony Duncan, District 9. I always forget to do that. Anyway, I don't know if this is the appropriate place, but I was here for two reasons. One of them was about the sustainability coordinator, and I don't know if this.
The what?
The sustainability coordinator.
No.
Because that was in the budget.
Isn't
Okay.
that in this?
Well, it is, but
Not
we're
related to
talking
this
about the
particular
budget.
question.
No, it is in this budget that you would be approving.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so it was about the resolution at RTM, about seeing if there could be money found in the in
And
the
it
budget.
has been found, and it is in the budget.
Okay, great.
And that was discussed at our last meeting.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. Then there's another thing, maybe I could just talk to them at some other point. It's about revenue from water runoff on impermeable surfaces. And I don't know if that's anything you guys have talked about.
You mean stormwater?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not really part of this.
No, this is just water and sewer, but yeah.
Is
we
that
can-
something that I could talk to you guys
Sure.
at some point?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Tony.
Dick?
Dick DeGray, District 8. I missed the last meeting, and I had this question for you, so maybe you could answer it here before you vote. The sustainability coordinator got passed over to the ratepayers here.
Half of it.
That's more than enough. So could you tell me a little bit about what he's going to be doing and what projects he's going to be working on for 2.5 days a week up with the Water and Sewer Department? And I certainly will be looking for a report from the sustainability coordinator in the monthly reports on projects that he's working on. So if you could talk about that for a little bit, that would make me happy. Thank you.
So I note in the monthly report that the sustainability coordinator is very diligent about listing all of his duties. Dan, if you would like to add your sketch of what his duties would be in the utility plan.
Sure. We've been working with Stephen on some ongoing projects at the wastewater plant that include potential solar additions down there, as well as some biogas capture and generation of power or heating the plant. There's some existing grant opportunities that he has been working towards, and there's a lot of reporting that goes along with that, and that effort is ongoing. I think having him on board will add capacity. There's a lot of opportunities that kind of align with sustainability that we don't have the opportunity to pursue. We've kind of taken a high-level look at some in-pipe hydro options that would replace some of our pressure-reducing vaults with small hydro generators that go in the pipe. There's a lot of opportunities out there to kind of reduce emissions and make our fleet more efficient. That may be a possibility. We're just finishing up the biosolids report from the wastewater treatment plant from last budget cycle. So there's next steps on that and how we want to pursue potential projects. I think there's the forest management at the watershed. I think we need to kind of get into it and see what the best fit is.
Overview. Thank you very much. All right. Yes, Tony?
I know that there was some work being done about like turbines in the water system to get energy. Is that still?
Yeah, that would be the in-pipe hydro to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Are we ready to vote? Can we, I'm going to try to reiterate those numbers. And, okay, so Amanda has moved to approve an FY26 utility fund budget, which include projected revenue of $7,085,007 and projected expenses of $7,782,876, including FY26 capital expenses and depreciation as presented below in alternate number 1. All select board members in favor of that motion?
Okay.
All select board members in favor of that motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Great, that's 5-0. Okay, gentlemen,
Dan.
thank you very much.
Agreed.
Let's see. What's next?
Parking.
Parking. Is Darren and Jeremy? Is that
Yes, so like.
Highway Superintendent Pacheco and Assistant Chief Evans?
Yes. Thank you. And so we'll, same as with the utility budget, so we talked about this at your last, we talked about the draft parking budget at your last meeting, and Darren and Jeremy took your feedback and have brought back revisions to the parking budget for FY26, including several options which they'll, I'm sure, describe for you.
Gentlemen?
Good evening. Just got a few notes to go over to make sure we hit everything, so bear with me. Tonight we bring forward the proposed FY26 Parking Enterprise Fund budget for your review and approval. This marks the second year of our broader effort to redevelop Brattleboro's parking operations and return the fund to a long-term sustainability. Over the past year, we've made significant progress. The new payment system, launched in November of '24, represents a major modernization of how the town manages parking. We're now in a critical phase, beginning to collect full year data under the new system and using that information to guide future decisions. The budget before you today reflects both fiscal discipline and responsiveness to community priorities. Staff have prepared 3 balanced budget options. The only variable among them is how the board may choose to support holiday-free parking downtown in December, either a 14-day, 7 days, or none at all. These options represent a thoughtful trade-off between encouraging downtown activity during the shopping season and preserving our commitment to eliminating the fund's structural deficit. Staff analyzed 5 years of holiday parking revenue data to quantify the potential impact of each option. A 14-day free parking period would result in a modest projected deficit of just over $500, while a 7-day version would still produce a healthy surplus. All other expenses remain fixed, allowing you to make this choice based on policy priorities, not operational constraints. It's also worth noting the progress being made beyond the budget itself. The current board has directed the staff to explore several operational improvements, from revised parking zones, improved Sunday policies, appeals processes, and permitting. Staff are actively working on draft ordinance changes to support these improvements in FY26. These efforts, combined with increased oversight by the police department, will continue to drive efficiency and better service delivery. Tonight, we respectfully ask for your approval for one of the 3 options presented. Doing so will allow us to maintain momentum, continue refining our operations, and ensure that the parking services remain both financially sound and responsive to the needs of our community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Darren, is there anything that you'd like to say at this time, or you're the answer man?
I'm the answer man.
Okay, questions, comments?
I have one comment or question. Thank you for the options. It's really great to look at them and understand how they end up money-wise. Have you looked at the possibility of actually doing 4 weekends in December rather than 14 continuous days? So that would be 12 total days if you include Friday, Saturday, Sunday throughout the month of December versus the weekdays. Would that just be too difficult to manage or possible?
No, we can. The data I pulled basically were from the last 5 years was from the December 11th to basically the 24th through those 5 years. So weekends usually generate a little more revenue than those weekdays that I pulled. So I could pull those numbers and get. I mean, really, we're trying to get a rough number idea of what we may lose on revenue. And so the only way we can really do that is see what our usage is during those timeframes through last year and kind of come up with an estimate of what that revenue loss would be. So basically what I would do is just look at those weekends throughout the previous years, kind of see what usage was in the past, and then come up with an estimate on revenue loss.
Amanda, I had a very similar thought, and that was the 3 weekends before Christmas. And so it would be December 5th to the 7th, the 12th through the 14th, the 19th through the 21st. And that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is 9 days.
9 days, yep.
And I like that because it's not 14. And it might be a happy medium for everybody. So I'm floating that out to my fellow board members to see what they think of that as a modification to one of the 3 options presented.
Well, and Peter also was a downtown merchant. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
I'm going to turn it over to my agent to answer that. So if I'm listening to my fellow merchants downtown, if we're going to begin to jockey around with this, then we need to factor in the Black Friday after Thanksgiving to factor that. And then I wouldn't mind jumping over. I don't think the 5th and the 6th.
Well, that's holidays.
Is it though?
It is.
I'm not
It's always
sure
the
about that.
first weekend.
Yeah, it's
I'm not convinced.
neither am I.
I am a holiday shopper,
Yes.
and I can tell you that it's always the first weekend of December.
All right. Well, so barring confirmation of that, that would be the big weekend then. So
So you'd want to add the Black Friday weekend, and then we'd be back to
But
12
that-
days,
Yeah.
which sounds very reasonable to me.
Is still a little bit. So we would be looking, though, on that, the 28th, 29th, 30th, right? Because now we have Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got, so we've got 4 weekends, yeah, so 12 days.
4 times 3.
Yep.
Bingo. Isaac?
A point of clarification, what have we done in terms of free parking in past years? Because what I'm looking at here, it looks like we've charged for parking for the 2 weeks leading up to Christmas.
Last year, and especially because the system was new, I mean, these guys can explain more, but in years before, it was holidays, Friday and Saturday, and that was it. But do you guys want to describe what you did
just the Friday and
last year?
Saturday prior to Christmas?
No.
And then keeping in mind
The
that
first
Sunday used to
weekend
be.
in December was holidays.
Okay.
And the merchants asked for and received, the Chamber of Commerce
The Chamber, yeah.
specifically, asked for and received that gift.
Was just for the free parking for the first weekend in December.
Correct.
And
But last year there was more. John, Jeremy, Darren, what was last year? It was 2 weeks?
It was extended. I can't remember the exact time frame, but no, we worked some with DBA on that, and they were looking for an extended period of time that they would like free parking, and I think that was approved. And I
Yes.
can't remember the exact
And
date.
a lot of it had to do with the fact that the parking system was new and befuddling a lot of people.
so now that the parking system is not new and we are running a deficit, which we anticipated, could someone remind us why we are talking about increasing the amount of free parking?
To increase business in our downtown.
To increase business in our downtown, and Penelope Ware gave a very compelling discussion last time about the fact that if more people shop, then more people pay the 1% tax, and that accrues 75% of which to the town. Yes, John?
And I think also with whether it's 12 days, 9 days, or 7 days, it's not a deficit. It would be a slight surplus, is our projection.
Do we have any data that suggests that increasing free parking results in increased yields to our businesses?
Not necessarily data, but certainly merchant testimony.
And why would we choose to focus on the 2 weeks before Christmas rather than, say, just making parking free all the time or doing, why particularly those 2 weeks?
Because it's not 2 weeks. What we're talking about is 4 weekends from November up until Christmas. And the testimony at our last meeting was about how important those winter holidays are to the merchant's bottom line, and that it's crucial to their bottom line, and that's the action that we're taking in terms of a measure that it is an economic development measure.
So I can weigh in a little bit, talking with fellow merchants and saying that particular time of the year, a majority of our downtown merchants do 30 to 40% of their annual income during that time. And to make that easier, offering, not having to worry about a meter, feeding a meter, figuring out a meter or a kiosk would maybe even increase that number
I think
a
it
little
would
bit.
bring people to town and extend their shopping. But Kate Traskus can answer that question for you. Hi, Kate.
Hi, how are you? So I just want to say, yes,
Affiliation.
oh, sorry, Kate Traskus, Downtown Brattleboro Alliance. I agree with what you're saying, absolutely. I would also say that majority of merchants express to me that shopping happens towards the end of the month. So we have a lot of last minute folks out there. So I would definitely, consider that. And I also just wanted to raise, National Main Street America did a survey this year, and across the country, businesses' confidence in business is down more than they have ever seen. I think that costs are up and consumer spending is way down. I know that our downtown has reported the slowest first quarter that many businesses have ever had. And just to amplify what Peter said, that holiday shopping time really carries several of our folks throughout the year. So anything that we can do that encourages people to come downtown, I would be absolutely supporting. And I also just really want to thank Darren and the team for doing such a great job in exploring all of the options, and this continued work into the next fiscal year, to do the best that we can to improve the system for the people who use it.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Isaac, do you have more questions?
Yeah, so one of the things that we had heard about at one of our previous meetings talking about the parking system is that one of the reasons why we have parking enforcement is to stimulate the turnover of parking so that people aren't just parking their vehicles. For instance, there could be residents, Main Street residents would say, okay, we have free parking. Could they potentially just leave their vehicle parked all day long? Or if we're saying free parking in designated parking spaces for whatever days, does that mean that there's no parking enforcement and people can just leave their vehicles parked there and potentially clogging up spaces in front of a downtown business?
I would anticipate that the residents and visitors to Brattleboro at the holidays would understand the need for free parking and not abuse it.
But this was one of the concerns that the downtown business owners had expressed about free Sunday parking, was that if we have free Sunday parking, then residents are going to be clogging up those parking spots, deciding, okay, I won't bother parking up in the lot. So if their concern is about Sundays, why wouldn't that also be a concern for days leading up to the holidays?
Let's hear from Kate again. Hi, Kate.
Hi. So in a recent survey, by request actually of Oscar, I surveyed the downtown businesses, and unanimously, everybody said we would like to have free parking back on Sundays. So yes, from I think a national Main Street perspective, the idea of turnover in the downtown, making sure that there is a way that parking turns over is a benefit to the downtown. I also think that what we have seen and heard very clearly is that locals in particular are not coming to the downtown and are particularly upset about the Sunday parking costs. And so, I think we need to just weigh all of this. Like, maybe it's Main Street, maybe the lots, and again, I think that Darren and the team with more time and a full year of looking at data will be able to give a more nuanced recommendation. But again, the merchants polled unanimously, which is difficult to do, said that they would be interested in free parking on Sunday.
Thank you, Kate. Ivan?
Ivan Hennessy, District 8. I want to caution you not to give too much of a crap what merchants say, because they're not the ones using the parking. And presuming that they can speak for their customers it's silly. How does anyone know how much the parking costs and which days it's going to be free? Because most of the people who would potentially be using the parking are not in this room. they're not watching it on Zoom. Even if you were to do some multi-million-dollar marketing campaign, most of them will never see that. They're going to arrive and see that they have to pay or not pay and deal with it.
Susan?
So I'm going to dispel the rumor, particularly around Harmony Lot, that tenants, residents from downtown park in the parking lot and take up time. 99% of the time, those parking lots are empty after 9 or 10 o'clock at night. There's nobody parking there. The tenants are not parking there. They're parking in the parking garage because they want the covered parking. They're just not parking in the parking lots, at least Harmony Lot they're not, and they're certainly not parking on the street.
Can I point of clarification?
Sure.
Maybe. When does a winter parking ban go into effect?
When there's snow.
No, there's a date.
November 15th to April 15th.
Thank you.
It often snows.
So
So you can't park on,
you can't park on Main Street after.
Did I see a corner of my eye?
Overnight. It's just overnight that you
It's
can't
overnight?
park on Main Street.
Oh, wait.
Okay. Dick?
I think you called on me. The enterprise fund is underwater. I'm a consumer. I don't base my shopping habits on free parking. I base it on the stores that are in the town that I want to go to. I was recently out of town. I went to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Parking was $2 an hour. It didn't make any difference which street you parked. It was $2 an hour. And the parking tickets were $35 because I got one of those also. But I did get it abated because I appealed it. And Liz brought up the point that I was going to bring up. You know, you're talking about 7 free days and 14 free days, and then Liz said holidays, which is free Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I would like you to concentrate on the enterprise fund itself in the condition that it's in. The reason that the previous board went to Sunday parking is because this budget is underwater. And I would encourage you to keep the Sunday parking and actually add the 2 hours that you were thinking about doing from 6 to 8 o'clock. I was recently up in Maine. Parking went from 9 to 9, and it was $6 an hour, regardless of where you parked. You treat this like, okay, we can't do this. The shop owners, the taxpayers are going to, in Brattleboro, if this thing goes underwater, are going to be the ones that have to pay the debt. And I sit here and I go, and I was looking at the budget, and I don't see any money in the budget I see $10,000 for rent. We're going to have a police substation in there. They're going to go there for free. Did anybody ask that question? They shouldn't be going there for free. This is an enterprise fund. It makes money. You just talked about an enterprise fund. It's not a taxpayer expense. The taxpayers didn't pay for the transportation center. And so when I sit here and I listen to you talk about free parking, a big thing is weather. We had a pretty severe weather. We lose money every time we have a severe snowstorm. And when you have one in December, never mind free parking, I don't have any customers. Doesn't make any difference if we chauffeur the people, they don't want to come. So you've got to take all these variables in. So free parking, I laugh when I hear about it. It is, and if anybody, I still believe that the town people will go down and take the valued spots that you will. When tourists come to town, they're not coming here because it's free parking, because they have no idea that it's free parking. So I would ask you to look at the bottom line and be concerned about the shape that this enterprise fund is in before we start going away and giving away the store. Thank you.
Oscar? Let's have a, well, go ahead, and then we'll have a, we'll get a
Well, actually,
motion together.
before we move on, let Oscar go, but
Yeah.
there's a few things I want to push back on.
I think we may be overcomplicating this a little bit. I don't think parking is an important factor, but it's a small piece of the puzzle. We're not going to make or break a business's experience with free parking. I think there are arguments on both sides of the free parking thing. What we're talking about here is maintaining Sunday parking and not adding evening parking. And I want to really thank Kate for working with me and helping me get some extra info. The results, it was 40-something businesses. They were unanimous in favor of Sunday parking. On the question of getting Sunday parking back in exchange for evening parking, almost nobody wanted it. So I feel like we are on the right track here. We're also, I think at a certain point, we have to trust the budget projections that we've been given. I am perfectly, in $1 million budget, I am perfectly comfortable with projecting a $500 deficit. Of course, it won't be that exact number, but I have no problem with that. And then I think from what days to make free, I would say let's just, right now I'm feeling like let's go with option one, but instead of locking in days, let's just say we've given ourselves a bucket of 14 days that we will try to spend wisely throughout the year, and then we can make those decisions about what days to make free when the time comes up. I'm personally also unsure that holidays will be the first weekend this month. That's something where we can, we'll get an answer on that, but at some point. But I think the flexibility will be good. 12 or 14 days that we can use for little pockets of downtown development, I think would be good. And I think that's a good number.
Okay, so all the doubters, and it's really too bad that Kate O'Connor isn't here for this meeting.
I know.
Yeah.
No. So let me, I just wanted to address a few things here. One, what Ivan's suggestion that asking downtown merchants their opinion seems to not be a good idea. I can tell you as a downtown merchant, the amount of people who talk to me about parking, sometimes inconvenience, they can't understand it, it's still a new system, all of that. I think your downtown merchants really have their pulse on the parking in downtown and the trials and the tribulations. Second thing is, you give me a multi-million-dollar advertising budget, there will not be a person in this town that will not know about that, but we're talking real terms. So guarantee, for a multi-million-dollars, I will knock on every door myself. I'll take Isaac with me, split it with you. To Dick's point, yep, we are running an enterprise fund. As you like to say, it's underwater. I also agree with you that I don't think a majority of the people that are coming from out of town care if they have to put $2 in the meter or no dollars in the meter. I don't think it makes a difference to them. If it's no dollars, it's nice, they move on, they get a cup of coffee, they buy a few things, and that's great. I think what we are extending here is some goodwill in offering up some parking for downtowns that less complicates our merchants' life. As you know, as a former merchant in downtown, that life can be difficult. Some days it's slow, some days it's busy, some days are good, some days are sad. So this is a way in the busiest time of the year to extend a little bit of gratitude for them and keeping their doors open to just offer what they believe will impact their bottom line. And thank you to Kate for surveying our merchants about Sunday. So what we're hearing here is that they want something, some mechanism like this. And I think I like Oscar's proposal of saying we have a slush fund of 14 days and we can decide how to use it.
Okay,
May I just say one thing?
Let me just clarify something. That I asked John, how many days off would we have to break even? He said 12. So let's,
Darren may have a.
Darren, do you have a?
Could I just say one thing? Really, you got to look at the revenue. They're projections. So
Of course.
Even if we go with option one that shows a $500 deficit, the amount of days that you want to make free would be an ordinance change. So say we pick 12. Yes, the revenue is going to show a deficit, but technically at the end of the year, we may, I have that number if you'd like it, if it makes it, it's about $1,087 per day that you're going to lose in revenue. So if you want to show that exact number on a budget, we can do that. Or you could say, hey, we got 14 days. The budget's going to project a $500 net deficit, but that doesn't mean that the budget actually will be at $500 net deficit at the end of the year. Do you get what I'm saying?
I'm hoping the town of Brattleboro has a much better understanding of a budget being a projection.
Yeah.
But I live in hope.
Yeah.
Okay, so more comments from the board. Isaac?
Yeah, but Amanda, were you going to say something first?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, anyone who's been to, say, the Messiah Sing, the Guilford, I can't remember what's, Friends of Music, Messiah Sing, right? You go to the Messiah Sing, maybe you come with your grandparent, mobility issues. You need some time. You need some time to get up and down that sidewalk, and you need some time to maybe take them out for coffee, and to not worry about feeding the meter is a really generous and lovely thing for a town to do. And I think reaching out a generous hand at a time where people are celebrating Hanukkah and Christmas, Kwanzaa, is generous and kind, and let's invest in that. Let's invest in our reputation among other communities. Come to Brattleboro on a holiday weekend. You don't have to worry about feeding the meter or stress.
Thank you. Excuse me? Isaac, did you have more comments?
Yeah, first of all, I really appreciate what you said, Peter, about merchants knowing what their customers are experiencing and hearing it, because I heard the same thing when I was talking to merchants downtown, concerns about parking. But the concern was with the parking system and having to adapt to this new system, which it sounds like some of those concerns have dissipated.
Can I just interject something really quick? It is a really quick question, and I meant to ask it while I was saying what I was saying. Our new kiosk system, and I apologize, thank you for letting me interrupt, can that be programmed to not accept money during those days?
I'm not 100% sure if I can program it not to collect money, but I can program the screen to say like,
you don't
free
need to
parking on these days. And I can program it like, hey, so this Saturday and this Sunday, change your display to say free parking. I know that can be done. I don't know if I can make it not take coins.
All right, well, no, as long as there's just a mechanism there to say that. All right, I apologize,
No,
thank you.
So I really appreciate this data looking back at the last 5 years. We've heard a concern about the economics, like the first quarter that there was revenue was down of this year. However, when we look at this data at 2024, the last 2 weeks of leading up to Christmas, that's the significantly highest revenue that we've gotten from parking of the last 5 years. Do you believe that's because of we were charging more, or is it? Do you think that perhaps there are more people shopping?
I would, looking at data that you could not really see here, I think that's from the rate increase. I think if you look at projections coming into this winter, that number would be a lot more. It's just the number of transactions in December were down from previous years. I think that increase that you're seeing there in the December 2024 was because of the rate increase.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that I've thought about is if we were wanting to make some concessions around parking and make things easier on folks, I'd be looking at like wanting to make sure that people with disabilities, for instance, are not having to pay. Do people with disabilities currently have to pay? When they have
Anyone who has a handicap placard can park anywhere in the town of Brattleboro for free.
Excellent. I would love to see seniors, people who are low income, be able to get a permit for, come into the town office and get a permit for free parking in town. That would be a place where we would want to be looking for investing in equity. I think that would be another discussion, and that's not what we're here tonight. But that's, to me, where the priority would be, to be looking at, okay, what can people afford? What can we do to make this downtown affordable for people who are local, who are depending on, need to go to Brown Roberts to get something, make it easier and more accessible for low income and seniors in our town. I have concerns with precedent. So whatever decision we make tonight, I imagine next year it would be harder to roll something back. It's harder to take something away. Once you've done it. So, what I would like to see is us do what we've done in the past with the holidays, whenever that is, but to provide the same free parking for that weekend, whenever that holidays is.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And let me remind you that I am a senior citizen. There are many senior citizens in town, and if we all had free parking, the parking fund would be meaningless. So, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Peter.
But a quick question. The chart that Isaac brought up with the significantly higher, is that, I assume that's both kiosk and permit combined, or is that just kiosk?
It's
parking?
just parking meter revenue, so that's
Okay.
not permits.
All right, thank you. All right, I will make a motion. I'll make the motion to approve option 4 of the FY26 Parking Enterprise Fund budget with the projected revenues of $1,020,780 and the projected expenses of $967,346 with 12 days of free parking.
Okay. So Peter has made a motion to, which we're now calling option 4, to,
I was afraid and confused when that started, but now I understand.
to approve option 4 of the FY26 Parking Enterprise Fund budget with a projected revenue of $1,020,780 and a projected expense of $976,346 with 12 days of free parking.
So that looks like it's more revenue than option 1 with, no, that's right.
Two
Right,
less
1,000-ish
days.
per day.
Yep.
2 less
Great,
days.
okay.
Okay, so, select board members in favor of that motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Okay, select board members who are not in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, so that's 4-1. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. You have information you
I just
need
have
to-
one last thing, and it was in your backup material. Jeremy, myself, and the team will be coming within the next couple months with some policy changes that you all have spoke of, permits and appeals process and type of things like that. So the reason that they weren't incorporated with this budget, because we feel that they will not cause a negative impact on the budget itself. It will create efficiencies that will create more revenue. So more to come.
Great, hold on. Oscar, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just, maybe to John, if the board wanted to make rate changes, that can happen independent of an ordinance, correct? Now, and when, this budget is just sort of assuming no changes to rates anywhere, right? Because of,
With some of the comments we've gotten back and ideas from the board or from the community, we definitely would steer away that, yes, you can make changes, but they would probably still create a increase in revenue. Let's say like, the High Grove, High Street zone area, we've talked about increasing rates there because it's been a more impactful parking lot. That would increase our revenue, right? And then the parking garage, we've talked about possibly decreasing, where we're not seeing a lot of demand there. So we're not seeing a negative impact because we're hoping that it's going to draw more demand, which would either plateau what we're getting now or increase our revenue.
so my question is procedurally, would we just, if the board wanted to do that, we would just talk about putting that on an agenda at some point?
I think we'll come back with parking, first reading on a parking ordinance, and we could probably do it at the same time that we did that.
But I thought that the board decided at our last meeting that we wouldn't make any rate changes for at least a calendar year. Didn't we decide that?
Did we?
There was no motion or vote
There was no
on
motion or
that,
vote of
but-
that. Well, that's on the table then.
Okay.
And
Thank you, yes?
I think we do need the ordinance for changing some of the zones and stuff like that.
Yes,
or
we
is that-
need the ordinance, and it's absent this rate discussion.
I don't, for the zone configuration, I'm not 100, I don't believe that needs an
Okay.
ordinance change.
there was
But there was, basically, we were talking like alternatives to possibly Sunday that may need be. These holidays are going to need an ordinance change. And so I'm we'll get it on the agenda, and we'll bring everything at once with the ordinance first readings and the talk about rates.
Thank you.
One more thing. I know feels cruel, but, and now it's slipping my mind. So, great, never mind.
Yeah, I will say there's no ordinance change for any rate changes or time limitation changes. That can be just voted on at the board here and be implemented.
So bad news, that made me remember, we need an ordinance change to establish free parking days. The board couldn't just say, hey, next Wednesday, let's not do paid
I
parking.
know we have an ordinance change when it's holiday. I know we have a vote when it's holidays.
I'd have to look, yeah. I think we'd have to look into that.
And just one more reminder that it is the first weekend of December. Okay, so, thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
Fire car number 2. Should we take a break before we have this discussion? I think we should. Let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 5 minutes to 8.
That's it. My sciatic is not even kicking in yet. It hasn't woken
Let's call this meeting back to order. Take all our wayward select board members back to the table. All right, the next order of business is fire car number 2 decision. John?
Yeah, so I would invite Chief Simons up to the table, and this is, so I think you'll explain the situation here, but essentially, we had incident with car 2 in which has rendered it inoperable, and we need help from the board to determine what to do at this point. So.
Right, so come to you tonight with sad news. We deferred the car 2 vehicle purchase, which was due this coming fiscal year. Right in the midst of making that determination with the new budget, we responded to a call on Route 91 on the interstate, and it broke down, leaving our poor car 2 on the side of the road needing help. So we recovered that. It turned out to be an engine failure, so one of the lifters is broken. We looked at repairing the engine, which is a complete teardown of the engine and rebuild. For the cost of the engine rebuild was $7,955.27. So, trying to do all the homework, I said, okay, what's our other option? So another option is to replace the engine, which comes with a warranty. The cost of that is $13,621.10. And then just, to see what a new vehicle would look like. The new vehicle cost, the lowest cost we got was $43,000 and some change. But with the upfitting kit to replace like the radios and put the truck cap and those pieces on it, it was a grand total of $72,793.30. Just some additional info. So as the truck sits right now, the value of trade-in is $1,500. According to Kelly Blue Book, if we did all the repairs on the vehicle, it's worth $12,848. So I went even a step further, and I'm like, okay, so if we make the decision to repair the engine, what else is going to fail on this vehicle? And obviously we don't have a crystal ball, but just assess the vehicle and let me know what you find wrong with it. So took it up the auto mall. They found that it needs brakes, the rear suspension is failing. So the total cost to bring that vehicle back up to, mechanically being all in check was $11,013.42 with just doing all the repairs. And then, that brings the engine replacement up to $16,639.25 if we were to fix the vehicle. So we're looking at those 3 options. The least costly option is to repair the vehicle. But again, it's at the end of that, it's going to be worth maybe, if the trade-in value goes up to $12,848. None of this was, of course, in our budget to even make the expenditure to do the repairs. So we're kind of looking at, our fire department or our fire truck replacement fund is $186,000 for the capital improvement or the capital replacement. So our request would be to select one of these choices and use that funding to fund the either vehicle repair or replacement, and then put that back in the FY27 budget, which is when we were supposed to replace the vehicle, because we deferred that.
Great. Thank you, Jay.
You're welcome.
John, can you tell us a little bit more about using the capital fund? And
Well, it's as Chief Simon said, we would use the funds that we've already put into the capital fund to do one of these options. And then the idea would be to propose to backfill that for you in the FY27 budget.
And there's nothing improper with doing that?
No, you have every ability to do that.
And I just having some conversations in the other room. DPW is also making some vehicle purchases, some small vehicle purchases this fiscal year. If we chose to replace a vehicle, we would jump into their proposal and try to get a better discount on a vehicle and get that price a little bit lower. And we're also looking at, could we reuse some of the equipment off the current Car 2 vehicle to bring that down even more? But that 72,793 would be worst case scenario if we had to replace everything, pay $43,000 for the replacement vehicle. We're hoping to do better than that, but that's the numbers we have for you tonight as a worst case scenario.
Thank you. Select board members, you have comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing the research and figuring out these different options. If we were to replace, or you were to replace the engine and with a 3-year warranty to save money, not just this fiscal year, but for the next couple, why not continue to use that if there's a 3-year warranty on the engine plan to use that for 3 more years?
So the only concern that would be the continued depreciation of the vehicle. And at the end of that 3 years, our trade-in value is even less. One of my concerns this is kind of a little off topic, I guess. These small vehicles, we're actually holding on to them too long. And once they hit that 5-year mark, they really start to depreciate quickly and you're actually losing money. So you would, if you trade in a vehicle at 5 years, it's worth $28,000 or $25,000. You go down 3 more years down the road and now it's worth $12,000. So we lose a lot of money very quickly once that turns. And that's just across the board, like, as a homeowner, you purchase a vehicle, the longer you hold on to that vehicle, the less it's worth. So my concern would be 2 things. Does it depreciate so that we actually don't gain anything from it? 2, there is some rust on the frame. It's not soft yet, you can't put your finger through it, but the frame is deteriorating. And what will that look like in 1 or 2 or 3 years? Would we have a frame failure that caused the vehicle to then be completely inoperable? Just one of the concerns that I'm considering.
Other comments? Oscar?
Oh, I'll wait.
I mean, you all can't wait.
You can go first.
I'm a fan of replacing the engine and going for the more budget model.
Is that number
Sort
2?
of use it up, wear it out, kind of Vermont mentality a little bit, 3 years. But the one risk is that it could be a bad look if something happens again. But if we could get another 2 years out of it, great.
And that's that crystal ball, I don't know. I could come back to you next year and be like, well, had another catastrophic failure and the engine's good, but nothing else is.
Anyone else?
Sure. Oh,
Go ahead.
I'm actually leaning towards option 3. 10 years is not young for a vehicle that gets hard use. It was in the capital plan for 10 years. We put it off knowing that this was a possibility, that this was a risk. Even if we take option 2 and we run the car for 3 years with only as much maintenance as a brand new car requires, we're still paying, what, $5,500 a year if we split the cost out over those 3 years and then we're done with it, versus $72,000 over 10 years is $7.2K a year. We're saving $5,000 maybe if things go well. Obviously, it gets very murky if you think, oh, we've repaired it, and now after 3 years, how much does it have more than $1,500 in trade-in value? How much more? I could imagine a couple thousand more, unless it completely falls apart, in which case, nothing. So even though it's the most expensive option, I don't know. This was always the plan, and we took a shot, and it didn't work out. And now we have to pay for it, and I just don't see enough savings in 2 to balance out the risk. But I'd like to hear from the public and obviously everyone else.
I want to interject that I agree 100% with Oscar.
As always.
Others?
Yeah, there's, just to speak to Amanda's point, I agree with you on replacing an engine is a fine thing if you're in private industry or a homeowner, and that's what you can afford. We rely on these vehicles to respond to emergencies. So I am more comfortable in that scenario with going down to option 3 to make sure that we have a vehicle that can respond to those emergencies. And we know you'll work really hard as to making that 72 a much lower number.
Anyone else on the board? Okay, public. Dick?
The 3 new board members were really talking about the future and budgets and spending. And if you take $72,000 out of the capital plan, that's for future spending for an ambulance, that's going to get made up somewhere down the line. So that's going to hurt us. I strongly think that you should replace the engine. The vehicle now is only worth $1,500 by the chief's words. And if we put a new engine in it, it will have some value at the end of 3 years. I was a little disappointed. Now, new brakes, that's regular maintenance on any vehicle. Doesn't make any vehicle what you have. And what did you say, the shocks, Chief?
Rear suspension.
Rear suspension. Those are maintenance issues, and I'm hoping there's a maintenance log that shows that these vehicles are getting checked once a month or certainly once a quarter. But to go out and spend $72,000 when we can spend $13,000 is a benefit to the taxpayers long run. We might be in a better financial situation a year down the road with your prudent thinking and what you're going to be doing with the budget. So why would we go out and spend $72,000 now and when we can only spend 13 and have a brand new engine in the vehicle with a warranty? So I would hope that the people that are talking about buying the new vehicle look at it in a different light and say, you know what, I think we want to save a little money and we can look at this down the road. Thank you.
Wait, can I?
Of course.
Sorry, Dick, can you stay up for a sec? Can I ask you, can you just, I'm completely open to that logic, and I think, Amanda, your point about the Vermont style, use it until it wears out, that we're going to have to be doing a lot of that. I'm just, to make the numbers work, if we buy the new vehicle now and we replace it in 10 years, it's costing us $7,200 a year. If we go with option 2 now and say it lasts 3 years, we're saving maybe $1,500, $1,700 a year for 3 years, and maybe some of the resale value is left. Do you think that's worth the risk of more costs and like that the truck is expensive to maintain over those 3 years?
I think we're going to be in a much better situation. We wouldn't have to refit up the vehicle.
Yeah.
And so that's a significant savings. That's like a $25,000 savings or more on the vehicle. So why would we go out and do that right now when it's more prudent to put a brand new engine in? People do that all the time with their vehicles. I mean, at some point, we have to go, whoa, this is okay to do. This is really okay to do. And if it's got a little rust on it, we get it fixed. That's all. It's like, oh, there's some rust. We get a new truck? Please. The taxpayers, I said at the meeting to adopt the budget, uncle. So do something that would show the taxpayers that you're being prudent. It's Chuck's car. I like Chuck. I wish I could give him a new car. But this is okay to do. And this is sending a message to the taxpayers that we're going in a little bit different direction, and we're not going to have to make up all that money in a year or two for a new ambulance.
I just want to interject that I anticipate that cars will cost more in the next year or so because of tariffs and steel and everything else. And I think we should strike while the iron's hot and get the right car.
I would, yes, to what you're saying. If we are talking about a DPW vehicle that we don't need, I'm erring on the side of this being a vehicle for first response that might need to get there quickly. And if this were my vehicle, option 2 would be the only thing on my table. But if I needed my vehicle to make emergency deliveries, I would have to go to option 3. So I just wanted to reiterate, I think when we have a first responder situation, that I think we need to kind of frame that.
Dick, there's
Can I just say one thing too?
Dick.
Sure.
Is that
There's other
we're not
people-
buying a used engine, we're buying a new engine. So
No,
that's
I
a
understand
profound
putting it in a used vehicle.
Heidi?
Heidi Fisher, District 7. Question one, this may sound ignorant, and I've heard bits and pieces of the answer, and then I have a follow-up. What is this vehicle used for?
The
It's a
memo
car. It's not a fire truck. It's fire car. So what is that vehicle used for?
Okay, there's a memo in your backup that.
Chief's here. He could answer. Yeah, I mean, it can just be. Would like to understand because it's not a fire truck that we're talking about being the first on a scene and all that kind of stuff. So
it's a pickup truck used by our assistant fire chief. It is used for a command vehicle, so as the radios in the back to run incident command. It also tows trailers, so if we have a hazmat incident, a rope rescue incident, something that needs a UTV, it has the capability to tow that trailer. Essentially, he also does the health safety officer role with it, so cleans up encampments and things like that, and needles. He'll pick up the needles and put them in the back of the truck. So those are the main uses for that vehicle.
thanks. And the other question is, well, two actually. One is, my first thought was, do we really need this? Is there another vehicle that could do the same job without having to purchase a new vehicle? Or would buying a used vehicle make more sense? I know I know when I was on the Board of Rescue, we bought used vehicles all the time, and they were fabulous. Grant you, used vehicles are harder to find than they were back then. But still, I mean, there are maybe other options that we're not considering.
Thank you,
And
Heidi.
that's from somebody who drives a 40-year-old vehicle.
John, that was the case with the ambulances, correct?
They were
You wanted to
refurbished.
speak to that?
No, I just would say, I think if you were to approve option 3, we could look into that as a reduced cost approach.
Great. Gemma?
I just have a couple of questions. I'm unfamiliar entirely, not a little unfamiliar, but entirely unfamiliar with the process of purchasing a vehicle like this for a municipal government. Are we talking about paying cash for this vehicle, or are we talking about financing it? And if we're talking about paying cash rather than financing it, why aren't we talking about financing it? Of course, that would increase the cost because we'd have to pay interest on the loan, but it would split out the cost over many years rather than being a single $72,000 purchase in 1 year. Thank you.
Thank you. Nell?
So I have some clarifying questions for...
State your name, please.
Nell Mayo, sorry. I was wondering when Chief Simons was talking about the costs, we were looking at, I'm speaking in rounding to thousands, $7,000 for the engine rebuild, 13.6 for the new engine with the 3-year warranty. And then I think you were saying for the brakes and the rear suspension, I heard 11,000. Is that for the brakes and the suspension?
No, so the 11,000 number was the fix the engine, fix the brakes and the suspension. That was in total.
So 4,000 about for the brakes and the suspension.
Yeah, roughly.
Okay. I mean, my personal opinion would be to advocate for the engine replacement with the warranty, but I think we all speak from our point of experience, right? And my point of experience is driving old cars in the Northeast. And I think, I agree with much of what Dick echoed, and I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you. Susan?
Susan Belleville, Brattleboro. I really, really, really think that you should vote for a full truck replacement. If I were a first responder headed out to a fire scene and that truck was necessary for communications with the crews on site as well as crews responding, and that truck broke down because of an electrical failure, I mean, we're talking an older truck here, a possible electrical failure, a possible transmission failure, we haven't even talked about the cost of something like that. This is, to me, spending the kind of money to do a fix-it on a vehicle that is so essential is, in essence, really hampering the confidence that the fire department can have in that command vehicle going to a fire scene and acting as it's supposed to. So I hate spending money too, but I also don't want to be stuck on the side of a road or in the middle of Heinsberg Road with a broken down truck that's supposed to be at a fire scene communicating with people that are trying to save property and people. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. All right.
Could I throw another point in there just for
Please.
clarification?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the financial piece here, and I just want to be clear, we're not asking for additional money. We're asking to use our already approved capital fund and then use our FY27 capital fund to pay that back. So we're not asking for more money. We're just asking to utilize the money that we already have approved
Thank
in
you
a
very
different
much.
way, I guess.
Thank you very much. All right, let's have a motion.
Okay. So I'm going to motion to accept option 3, to replace car 2 and the associated command post radios and emergency lights for the $72,793.30.
Great. Peter has made a motion to accept option 3, to replace car 2 and the associated command post radios and emergency lights for $72,793.30. All select board members in favor? Oh, yes?
Yep. I just want to speak to this, that of course we want adequate equipment for our first responders. And I trust that we wouldn't be given options that were considered unsafe here. And we also want to look at what's affordable. And we made a decision just a few weeks ago that we weren't going to get this, put the money in for this fiscal year for this car too. So I think that we should stick with the decision we made, and I support what Amanda has proposed with option 2 of replacing the engine, repairing the critical driving components.
I'll comment too. Replacing an engine basically creates a whole new vehicle. It doesn't, it makes it just as viable. The advantages of that too are that the command post radio components of this vehicle are staying exactly the same, correct? So we're not
As long as they hold out. So
we're not having to purchase new right now.
Right.
And the DECT system, which will be very cool when it comes, but if we could hang on for a couple more years with what is, it would be the more fiscally prudent decision.
Oscar?
Well, I see Gemma's hand again, so to respond to that, because I realized we didn't, I personally, the reason we have a capital plan is so that we can pay for these big expenses with cash and save the financing, which I think has actually been a big success for the town. So I'd rather try to keep things on that basis when we can, just personally. I mean, Dick and Amanda and Isaac, I hear you all, and these are good points. I keep coming back to the fact that this is a truck whose lifetime was projected for 10 years in the capital plan. We tried to stretch it in 11th year, and then like days before the end of its exact 10-year life, it had a catastrophic failure. And if I knew that option 2 would hold out for 3 years with no problems, maybe, but even earlier in this year, we were talking about trying to get by for a year, not like sort of maintaining it to try and get more than that out of it. So the numbers the savings just aren't quite there for me to roll the dice on one or two. So I think I'm still 3 for now.
And
I also just, I'm sorry, let's go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, Oscar, you just said catastrophic failure, but in the memo, it says experienced a significant mechanical failure. That's not a catastrophic failure, in my opinion.
Okay, let's not talk about semantics.
That is semantics.
Okay. I was struck by the words that several people used regarding the fact that this is a first response vehicle, and we're not going to mess around with that. And I know, for example, with the SIT fire, that Chuck did a lot of important work in coordinating back and forth to the emergency team and then back up at the site. And I know it's important. It's an important piece of machinery that our town uses for important work. And I think we should bite the bullet and use the capital fund, and that's what it's for. And so let's have a vote. Yes?
Just in the interest of, just to respond to Amanda, I'm sure I'm using the wrong word. All I really mean is that at 1159 in its projected lifespan, we got a 5-digit repair bill. So it seems to me like we took our shot and it didn't work out. But I completely hear what you're saying.
Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Yes.
All select board members in favor of Peter's motion to accept option 3 to replace car 2 and the associated command post radios and emergency lights for $72,793.30. Please raise your hand. Okay, all those not in favor of option 3, please raise your hands. And that's a 3-2 vote. Chief Simons, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the new truck.
I'll bring you back a better estimate when we get this finalized. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. What's next? Select board retreat planning.
Yeah, might like me to tee this one up. So this is sort of the first step in preparing, kind of doing the process work to put together a potential select board retreat. And an annual retreat has been an important part of a yearly cadence of select board leadership. And it's an opportunity for the board to engage at a strategic level and talk about the issues and the focus that you would like to have in terms of your impact for the upcoming year, as well as building the FY27 budget. So the plan that Sue Fillion and I discussed is this is just a proposal, putting it out on the table, and we'd love to get feedback. We're not looking for a motion tonight, but the idea was that Sue could again serve as a facilitator so that the chair and all the select board members can fully engage in the discussions. The main purpose of the retreat has been to identify select board priorities. So in this case, what would be your priorities for the remainder of 2025 and moving into 2027, frankly, through the FY27 budget. We're proposing that this happen on July 17th from 2 to 6 p.m. at a location off-site, not this room, but someplace that is more amenable to an informal discussion. But we do propose that it be filmed and broadcast by BCTV and that there be a public participation component. In your backup materials, we put together a draft agenda, and these, again, are just some ideas for what you might cover during a retreat. But The purpose for airing them here is to get feedback for Liz and Oscar in terms of setting a final agenda, and also to help Sue and me prepare for anything that you might want to discuss. And so we had a warm-up activity in here. We had a high-level review of the town plan. We had a quick look at priorities of the last few select boards. A discussion, I think, and what I think should be the main focus is a discussion on what the select board would like to focus on over the next year and into the FY27 budget. Discussion of what, if anything, additional the select board might suggest for FY27 budget development. I know you've had a lot of conversations about that, and we have a lot of good notes on what that is, but there may be additional things there. A discussion of any process improvements for how the select board and the administration are functioning, particularly with regards to community engagement or how meetings are being run or things like that. You could have a discussion of preliminary select board priorities for the 2026 state legislative session, or a process discussion about how to develop those. We could do a review of action items and have public participation. So that was what we kind of tossed out there. It'd be great to get any feedback and input on whether you want to do this and if that date works or what you want to talk about.
And well, I just want to begin this conversation by saying that I appreciate the innovation of the Select Board retreat. John brought it to our attention, and this is the third year?
Yep, this will be the third year.
This will be the third year, and I also want to recognize Sue as being an excellent facilitator. I think it's something that the Select Board can come together and have an informal discussion and understand each other better and our goals for the year. So I'm fully supportive of this process, and I'd like to hear what you all think. Oscar?
Well, I'd like to do it, the day and the time works for me. I'd love to arrange it so that if we want to run a little long because we're really enjoying it, that we have that flexibility. Other than that, this agenda looks great, so.
Great.
I promise you we won't enjoy it. I'll make sure of that.
Great.
Yeah, I also think it's really great. The date is great, and I also encourage the public ahead of time, to mark that time on your calendar and send feedback and, information on agenda items that you would like us to also pursue, because you're all part of the table. So, yeah.
And Isaac, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea to have this retreat. Looking forward to it.
Is the date and time work for you?
Well, that's why I was looking at my phone. So check it out.
Right.
You should be years from now.
And do you need anything from us?
No, just if and if
July 17th, sorry.
July 17th.
I'm going to be teaching in Burlington at that time. I have a class scheduled
Well,
then.
we'll have to go back to the drawing board on that, but you're generally in favor of the...
Yeah, and the following week I could certainly do.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the open meeting law allows group communications about scheduling.
Yes.
So I
Yes,
think we can
it
just
does.
hammer this out in an email.
Yes, and so...
Well, if the 24th works, is there?
I'll have to look
It's
if
my
we
daughter's
have something.
birthday, but since we had a meeting on my husband's birthday, I don't see why we shouldn't have a meeting on my daughter's birthday.
I mean, if
You have a birthday breakfast?
We had a birthday lunch for my husband.
did you have cheesecake?
Yes.
Oh. Well, let's coordinate.
Okay.
All right, that's great. I'm glad everyone is in favor, and let's just move right along.
All right.
And thank you, Sue, for your,
No motion needed for that.
no
correct?
motion
I
needed.
had two things particular about the retreat that I had in mind. If we can start earlier to give us that flexibility, and also if we can have a 5-minute break every hour, just to keep it easy and fun.
Union?
Sue heard you.
And then also, if there's one of the things I have seen is that there have been policy decisions that the past select boards have made about, like, it's the policy of the Brattleboro Select Board around, like, for instance, the financial planning, that I would have never known about had I not happened to ask about it, someone happened to email it to me. And I'm wondering if there are other policy, like, could we have a review of like, oh, here are policies that are relevant to the work that we're doing in terms of budgeting process or financial planning, or if there are other, we have the equity or inclusion statement. Are there other policies like that the Select Board has?
Well, that's an excellent idea, and I think we can also review, what the charter says that the Select Board duties are. I think that might be helpful.
Great.
All right, moving right along. Depot Street Green Space. Sue and her merry band, is that it?
Thank you. I'm Sue Fillion, the planning director. This is Bob Bomig. He's a artist, a Vermont-based artist. And we're here to present to you a proposal for the green space down on Depot Street. It's it is the brownfield site. It's been capped. Currently, it's being used to store some soils associated with the Amtrak project. Over the years, I've had lots of people come to me wanting to, figure out ideas to how to program that space. We've had several plans, the downtown plan, even the town plan, that talk about programming that space to activate it a little bit more for the community. Bob approached me in 2024. He's done some projects around Brattleboro and elsewhere in the country, Northeast maybe, as an artist where he kind of sculpts the land. I'll let him speak to it. But he was applying for a grant from the Vermont Arts Council, and I wrote a letter of support to kind of help with that. And he had some small seed money to work on a design. And so we're bringing this proposal before you. There's really no action needed tonight, but I did want to get your feedback and if this is something that we try to move forward and look for funding to try to implement. As I said, there's been lots of people who've talked about that space over the years. Bob completed this work in the fall, and in January we had a meeting with about almost 30 stakeholders, people who've approached me over the years, Downtown Brattleboro Alliance, the museum, and others, even just people from the larger community who are into walking or biking and art and downtown, and kind of shared the vision with them. And it was very positively received. And then Bob brought in Monroe Whitaker, who's a landscape architect, and Peter Bomeg, who is a retired engineer. Maybe you're still an active engineer. To do some additional work and help with the plan, and we used that to apply for the Downtown Transportation Fund grant to look at Bridge Street. So that's kind of like a phase 1 to this project. This could be a phase 2. Seth, if you want to bring up the image, and then I will turn it over to Bob if you'd like to speak to it.
In that image up there, can I get up and point to this, or?
Whatever you like.
Good.
If we could get him a mic, though. Seth's.
Can you all see this image pretty well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we can't probably hear you for folks online, right?
Actually, it recorded.
Hold it.
Oh, it is catching it.
Yeah, it's catching it.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
What we are proposing here, in line with the Brattleboro Museum is a key part to this proposal, is to use the space in kind of a little bit different way. We are proposing a sculpture park for kind of a gateway to Brattleboro and Vermont. With the new train station being developed, we're looking to green up that space and making it more of a comfortable seating area for people waiting for the train or delivering people to the train. But this is going to be the first thing that they see as they enter Vermont. And with the Brattleboro Museum on board, we feel as though it is a perfect opportunity for them to expand their outdoor events and exhibition space. And we would like to do that with these 3 spaces developed so that they can hold large-scale sculpture. In the way Monroe, my brother, and myself come up with is to make sure that this is viewed from many viewpoints in town. So if you are coming down Main Street here, from the bridge, you'll have a direct view into this circle and probably this circle with a large-scale piece of work that we feel will draw people down to that area in town and maybe make this a whole new lively area, which, in my opinion, the more lively that area is, the less trouble that we might be experiencing down in that area. So a great view down to a large piece of sculpture, if you can picture that, which we have some leads on. One pretty well-known sculpture that lived in the area for quite a while. That would be quite a grand piece for probably this circle here. But our main idea is to keep these sculptures rotating over the years, giving other artists throughout Vermont a showcase. There's really not many places in Vermont, and with the plans to the museum expanding, this would make quite a campus. And I feel as though we need at least one organization to be able to guide that area. From the museum, as you enter the museum, there's a huge window on this side. It looks right down into the middle of this main circle. And this is a great seating area for people waiting for the train, or all these are kind of shaped into a small amphitheater type look to them. So each of these tips down into this flat area for music events, poetry readings, maybe the literary festival would use it. I think many organizations, I've talked to the New England Circus people, it would make a nice event, plus it would help the restaurant here. It would, and I think with the money that Sue has found to redo Bridge Street, I think we have a good plan here. So let me just run through a few things that we're going to do with this plan. We are going to widen the sidewalks, give more green space to the front lawn of the Brattleboro Museum. We're going to make safe sidewalks coming around. At this point, this sidewalk is only about 2 feet wide on this side. So we're going to widen that sidewalk, make it so 2 wheelchairs could basically pass at one time. We are going to change the grade of this road just a hair so that this will be an ADA approved crosswalk, which has never been there before, which closes the museum off from this whole side of Main Street. People still cross there, but it has never been safe. We are planting ivy on this wall coming down through here, which we're hoping with planting ivy that will clean up the wall and there will not be graffiti in the middle of town. Plus, to me, it gives a little prestige to an old building. I see many spots for this sculpture part to expand. I see 3 sculptures in here. I see a spot here, a small sculpture here. As you go up around the corner, we already have sculptures along here in front of the museum. And now with the new bridge, I actually see a couple other spots on the old Marlborough School campus for large-scale sculpture. So I see 7 spots in and around the Brattleboro Museum, which I feel would draw people into Brattleboro and give that area a great deal of activity. It would be kind of a hub for the state of New Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts. We could turn this area of town into something that is a destination that New England could basically use. It would be almost like a little bit of what North Adams did with Mass Mocha. The museum has great plans. This is a golden opportunity to do something with it. So we have a view coming out here for seating, a nice waiting area. Whatever happens in the museum or happens here, there's a view to it to attract people down into this area. And from Main Street, you'll be able to see into this area too. It opens it up to a lot of different activities. And in a pretty simple design, that's not going to be overwhelming. A soft design.
Bob, I want to jump in here and just be careful of the wires, please.
Oh, okay.
So this is a brownfield site. It's owned by the town. There is some capping that's gone on there. We've had a preliminary conversation with the state, but there would be more that we'd need to do to figure out if this design, could be permitted by Vermont DEC. And yeah, so this kind of preliminary as well as, what kind of landscaping could occur there or how, sculptures, if that's the route it went, could be affixed, so.
And would EPA brownfield funds, could they be used for any of this redevelopment?
I don't believe so because we've used them already. Well, it is possible that we could try to get an extra grant maybe out of the Wyndham Regional Commission if they have grant funding. But we have used EPA funds on the site already.
And what you have potential grants in mind for the?
So one could be the Downtown Transportation Fund grant. It could, do 80% of this. If we were successful next year, that's what we have for the Bridge Street grant. So AARP placemaking grants. So there's possibilities for grants.
Great.
We should, Bruno, you want to add to this? You got anything that you want to talk about here?
No, I think you've covered it quite well, Bob.
Pete, any questions for these guys that have all the answers?
I'm glad to hear it. I just want to, I'm sure we have questions, but before we start, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Boeming, and your brother, and also Monroe Whitaker. And I see from the memo that you received an artist development grant from the Vermont Arts Council, and I want to thank them too.
Yes.
And this is a very interesting project. And so, Select Board, do you have questions? No?
Comments, but not questions.
Then
I have
accepting
comment and a
comments.
question. Yeah, comment. This is terrific. It's really exciting for our town, really exciting for our art space and our community, and I can't be more excited. I have one question. Who will be in charge of maintenance? Will it be the museum, our Department of Public Works, Rexham Park? Has that been thought out yet?
We haven't, I think as this moved forward, we would have to have those conversations. I did speak with Carol a lot, not talking about the sculptures per se. She was, she thought the plan was reasonable, understood that it would take a little bit more mowing, in a different way if it was sculptured or kind of terraced like it is, and she was open to that.
Oscar?
Well, I agree with Amanda. Exciting. It looks great. My question is, I see you've developed a cost estimate. Is that something you can share with us, or should that?
I think for the greenfield, what we came up with, 330,
Yeah, I think it was around 330.
$330,000.
Just for the green area, not the street? Is that what you mean? Or
No, the whole second phase of that,
Okay.
of what we're talking, which,
Not the street.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Gentleman to my left.
Well, thank you so much for presenting this. I just came home to Brattleboro on the Vermonter the other day, the train, and, there's nothing like this that I'm seeing at any of those other stops along there. So that would be great to see that in Brattleboro right from the train. And this is aligned with, as it states in your memo, Sue, it's aligned with the town plan of access to the waterfront and enhancing the views of it. And that's such a beautiful area. If you look at the Whetstone Brook, just walking along there, the confluence of the Connecticut River, and I think in some ways it's sort of a dead space right now. There's not a whole lot that would draw people down there, especially right now with the construction. But I could imagine this being really nice to have basically a waterfront park in our community. We have the common at the north end of town, but Pliny Park and that park that's across from the co-op there. I mean, there's a lot of traffic and a lot of cars going by, but this would be a little bit out of the way. So that'd be great, and to be able to really celebrate and uplift the arts and have this community. We've talked a lot about this being a hub community and a destination for some behaviors that we don't really want. This is an opportunity to bring appreciation for art and the natural beauty of our community. I see it as a real asset. And I really appreciate that there's an organization that's been around in our community and has sort of capacity that we've seen the Brattleboro Museum and Art Center have, that is interested in this project and would be interested in curating public art.
can I make one other point? With this, we've also talked about cleaning up the bottom of the Brattleboro Museum. There's like a cement wall that goes up 6 to 8 feet high. We've also talked about planting that with ivy to kind of cut down on graffiti and things of that nature. So when you're sitting on that train, both sides of this track are going to be green for the first time. This is the Green Mountain State. That's what we want to broadcast as soon as they get across the line.
Thank you. Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, I like the whole idea of this thing. I like the fact that, and I've ridden that train as well, and I think what I'm seeing, to Isaac's point, is correct. It would be, this stop would stand out. I also love the idea that there's opportunities for other artists to display their work, so it can be a little bit something new if you haven't been to the area in a while and there was something there, then the next time you come by, it's changed out. So that little bit of a dynamic feel to it, and I like that a lot, so thank you.
I think it adds a lot to our community. All right,
I have one more thing after hearing Peter. It'd be cool if there was a novel bike rack there, because people could put their bikes on the Vermonter and that, some sort of groovy.
Well, we have talked to people about underneath the Brattleboro Museum. They are going to, once they have expanded, they would like to do something where the old railroad station was, take down some walls and things. And we have talked about bike rentals out of that space. So when you do get off the train, there is something that you can jump on and pedal or motorize yourself up through town, maybe up through Route 30, things of that nature, developing trails around town. So a family can make the trip up here, get off the train and spend the day in town, going across that new sidewalk or crosswalk we want to put in, and getting up through Main Street and getting into some of the retail stores and using Brattleboro for what it should be, kind of a nice artist, crafty community.
That's an excellent plan. Thank you. Let's hear from the public. Gemma?
Seymour, District 8, Brattleboro. I love the idea of doing something to make a new public park out of that space. However, I have a number of concerns with this plan that don't seem to be addressed in the graphics. First of all, I don't really see any way that a disabled person is going to be able to access the interior of this park, especially if it's configured as an amphitheater with steps going down. There's no wheelchair access there at all. I don't see any ramp access to it either. I don't see any provision made for lighting. I see no provisions made for seating or tables for people to eat lunch at. I see no provisions for trash receptacles. And finally, while I am a visual artist, I am primarily a performing artist. And I would really like to see some provision made here for performance space. I think there's ample room given the scale of this drawing, to put a small stage in where people could perform. And along with that, I think, lighting needs to go in, and electrical service would also need to go in. I don't see any provisions for that. And I'd like to see that added to a plan like this. I love sculpture, but should the entire park be dedicated to sculpture? It's not part of the museum. It's a public park. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Or Bob, do you want to?
Yes, I'd like to answer that, and I might want one of you guys to jump in on this too. Why don't you do that, Pete?
I think all of our concerns are actually addressed in this. We just didn't explain that in what we presented here. It's all ADA accessible. The design includes that. There is a provision for lighting and power up there in the plan and in the money that we the estimate and so forth. The larger circle near the river is, I guess, 40 foot in diameter, and the idea there is, in fact, that we could have performances there and that type of thing, and that was part of the plan with the design. And I forget what the other questions were, if there was any.
You're batting 1,000 so far, Peter. Thank you.
So we have made provisions to get electrical service in there. We've made provisions for water to be on the site.
Mm-hmm.
We have graded it so that it will be ADA accessible to get to the top circle.
Right. And I'm sure that Sue will make sure that the public is the public and the private is the private.
Absolutely. And I would just add that, we still need.
It's a concept.
It's a concept, and there are things that maybe need to change. I think, we are going to have to work around the brownfields issues and the regulatory requirements there.
Oscar, did you have a comment?
No, Sue said it.
All right. Anyone else in the public? Well, I must thank you, Sue and Bob and Peter and Monroe, very much. And we're all very happy with this plan. And thank you for bringing it to our attention.
So we'll keep working.
You keep working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I want to thank Bob and Pete and Monroe. Their collective professional experience is actually quite a donation to the
Yes.
town, the work that they've put into this so far, so.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. We have one more item to discuss. And for those of you playing along at home, this is agenda item F. I think there was a little problem with the agenda.
Oh.
Oh, F. No, I guess it was. Yeah, F, committee assignment, committee appointments. Okay.
Yeah, my tabs were also a little confused.
A little
Yeah. Oh.
wonky, yeah. All right, so here we have, John, do you want to discuss this?
Sure. So you did a bunch of committee appointments at your last meeting. There were a few that came in after that slate was put together. These are mostly all uncontested, with the exception of the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships member. And Christine Hazard, the director of Brattleboro Housing Partnerships, provided you with a letter recommending one of these people to continue on in their role there. So, you know, that was the recommendation from that board. Open to whatever the board would like to do, but the suggestion is that that you consider a slate here with all of the uncontested, and then appointing Susan Walker as the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships member.
All right. Is there a motion to do exactly that?
There is.
Great.
I move that we appoint, shall I read these names?
Yeah, that would.
Go ahead, that'd be great.
I move that we appoint to the Arts Committee, Jenna Strubble and Eric Stewart for 2-year terms. That we appoint Susan Walker to the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships for a 5-year term. That we appoint Eli Coughlin Galbraith to the Energy Committee for a 2-year term. That we appoint Gemma Seymour, Bonnie Gervin, and John Cooler to the Planning Commission for 4-year terms. And that we appoint John DeLesney Jr. to the Traffic Safety Committee for a 2-year term as citizens representative.
Well, thank you. That was very helpful. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the slate that Isaac so nicely read, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, there we are, 5-0. And I need one more motion.
I'll motion to adjourn.
And all in favor of Peter's motion to adjourn, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
That's another 5-0. I thank you all very much. I thank BCTV. I thank the interpreters. I thank Seth. And I thank all of you. What Isaac proposed was to select the person in the contested seat that the Housing Authority recommended. So that's what we did. Sorry. Anytime. All right. Thank you to Chris as well. Good evening.